And we're back. Thank you for joining the date. Today it is now the 12th of July 2022. It is now 1:28 a.m. And today is a Tuesday. And at this point, my Rogers modem has been flashing in orange light for the last 4 days now. Starting at 4 a.m. when I was last online, Friday morning past last weekend. So we're going to catch up as I am tethering until this is resolved, even though it is very unprecedented in our history that something like this actually is happening, right? Now, while it might not seem as it's such a dire state of emergency situation, it could easily fall into that. God forbid that this happened to maybe the other big conglomerate, like even like Bell and who was the granddaddy of all, right? You understand is Rogers has a good chunk of it, and we're going to make a deal with Shaw, and somehow, and once again, this is speculation. Words are that it was hacked. Now, if it was hacked because of political interference in what's happening in Europe, if it's retaliation, if any other country besides, let's say, the top three, which would be Russia, China, right? Heck, maybe even Africa, maybe Israel, we don't know yet. But it is a hot button topic because a lot of businesses, hospitals, transportation, you name it, anyone who had even an Interact card was not able to make any business, any type of sale or shop. And now, in this particular case, unless you have, once again, if you need Wi-Fi, it's still not in service. It's still been down. So, it is understood that a lot of the services have gone back up. But once again, we don't know because for sure we're not hearing any updated information regarding this situation. It's amazing, but not surprising. Why even our ministers that we vote in, and even the Prime Minister even mentioned, what's up with that? What is he? I guess he doesn't have Rogers, right? So this is something really, we'll take a little look. I call it a siege, pretty much. That at least for me, like sitting, doing some writing, typing. This is what it is. Now, there's two takeaways here. Because I am a Gen Xer from the old school, the epiphany I had, and I'm going to tell all of you, is get a transistor radio. Even something that can carry those frequencies, even like your old Walkman, you know what? It's back in style because we've been bombed back to the Stone Age. So, or hacked back to the Stone Age, if for a better use of words, right? But yeah, we were cyber bombed. And so, with that, we have to take away that this was some type of attack that not any or everybody was ready for. Because they're not even now on this date. This is already 4 days. This is since what, the 8th? It's now the 12th. It's nearly 5 days for some people on the other side of the nation, right? All across the West, right? And then here we are coming from the East. What on earth is going on? Well, we're going to take a look at a few things here on the date. Once again, subscribe, like, and share. Um, and feel free to check out my other sites. I'm a data jockey, streaming educational, factual, unadulterated lessons from Black history, finding solutions to surviving basic instructions before leaving the planet Earth. It's formational documentary streaming, historical, educational media. Fair Act use disclaimer. Fair Use Act. This site is for educational purposes only. Fair use. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing on profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Hashtag newblackmedia. Stop the Black Genocide, Black Hawk, Drop the Hawk, World Black History, Literacy, Culture, Afro, First Nations. Now I'm also on Getter, The Date, WordPress, and The Date, Internet Archive, Medium, Odyssey, BitChute, Rumble, Substack, Patreon. So definitely check me out. Take a look. I really like Internet Archive. That's probably one of the freshest things, So, and of course, in conjunction with my advice on getting yourself a transistor radio. We're literally back 20 years, even though it might not appear so. We're falling back into those days, like it was, let's say, in the early 2000s. Newsletters. So, yeah, because this happened, a transistor radio needs to keep abreast on the news is definitely the idea of the day. Because if you don't have the internet, in some cases, you will not be able to at least know what's going on within the world. And going back to even, at least the last Great World War, radar and transistors was what it was. So definitely think into it. And when you check out sites like the Internet Archive, what I like about it is, well, once again, if you're going to go back to newsletters and some old school, and there'll be new tubes coming around, it's always good to be able to at least have some type of inventory and save some of your stuff somewhere. So definitely the Internet Archive is a good way, and you don't have to worry as much if people are going to hack into your stuff per se, because at least you have your originals and you have your etched in stamps pretty much. And it's not only that, you also have access to check out other, with the Wayback Machine, other sites, other archives, Canadian libraries. But it's one of those good investments, because nowadays you never know, right? What the information, where the information's going, anything, people, and what with bots being created, AI mimicking your existence on the internet, turning into other bots and whatnot, right? So, hey, if they're gonna try and stalk you or try to hit you up and hack you, you know what? Bring it over here. As it says, Internet Archive brings some measure of order and permanence to knowledge, right? Even though that in general also, yeah, by publishing companies, right? So it's always interesting. It always seems to be, a hustle and a tussle, but I consider it to be one of the better spots to save your stuff if you're blogging, especially now that stuff gets taken down. And as I mentioned previously on the last post, hey, it's always good to have alternatives and backups, because we're back in the age of, once again, a dial-up world. Or, if I could say sum it up as such, the Internet Archive has asked a federal judge to rule in our favor and end the radical lawsuit filed by 4 major publishing companies that aims to criminalize library lending. Right? So it's about lending information, having the right to learn, and it's always about the money and power and the right of imposing those ideologies or doctrines or whatnot, anything to keep the truth from getting out. And even though you have to, once again, have discernment as to read and learn, you still have a right to read and learn. You still have a right, at least. And then from there, make discernment as to, well, what is ethically right or wrong? And maybe take something from it. The motion for summary judgment filed Thursday in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York by the Electronic Frontier Foundation (EFF) and Dirty Taggery LLP explains that a controlled digital lending (CDL) program is a lawful, fair use that preserves traditional library lending in the digital world. Okay. The brief explains how the Internet Archive is advancing purposes of copyright law by furthering public access to knowledge and facilitating the creation of new creative and scholarly works. The Internet Archive's digital lending hasn't cost the publishers one penny in revenues. In fact, concrete evidence shows that the Archive's digital lending does not and will not harm the market for books. So, this is what they're saying. Should we stop libraries from owning and lending books? No. And this is by Bruce Terkel, the Internet Archive's founder and digital librarian. We need libraries to be independent and strong now more than ever in a time of misinformation and challenges to democracy. That's why we are defending the rights of libraries to serve our patrons where they are online. So, yeah, I mean, this is makes for good reading, so you might want to check that out. But definitely, with that being said, definitely blog and definitely check out other sites such as the Internet Archives. I'll also mention Getter, brought to you by one of the coolest sites I've been to in a long time when we're talking about social media. Very interactive, straight to the point, hard knocks, right? You might not agree with everyone, but at least you're getting more up to date, honest, however, in many cases, troubling facts live than you are getting on other sites today, right? So even though it's a little bit more, a little bit more punch up on the, some, a little propaganda, a little punch up, right? A little shock and awe. But I like it. I like it like this without someone saying, you need a fact check. No, I'm not done with that. So check out Getter. And check out Internet Archive blogs and the Internet Archive. It's a cool site where you can actually save your shit. You can even maybe somehow promote your stuff, right? Internet Archive is a non-profit library of millions of free books, movies, software, music, websites, and more. So definitely check it out. So let's go on with the news here. Now that you know what time it is, let's see the date. So now, just before this internet shutdown happened, just a few days before, on July 5th, prominent Quebecers alarmed by CRTC ruling that criticized Radio Canada segment with the N-word. A host of politicians, former and current Radio Canada employees and journalism advocates are calling on the public broadcaster to fight back against a new CRTC ruling criticizing a radio segment that featured the N-word 4 times. Okay, so this was a couple years ago. Radio Canada commenter Simon Jourdain and the host Annie Desrochers spoke about a new petition calling for the firing of a Concordia University professor who created discomfort in class by reciting the title of a well-known political book by Québécois author Pierre Vallée, Nègre Blanc d'Amérique. White Niggers of Canada. That was the fucking book. Get over it, kids. Bunch of pussies. I'm sorry about it, I'm not sorry, but, I say sorry for YouTube, pardon me, you do that, but, I don't want to swear too much, but, like, really? That's my book. That book was happening when I was born and my mother went to Concordia University to go, and along with the others, complain about the poor grades. So let's see what these people say here. So the book, an influential political treatise, published in 1968, compared the plight of French Quebecers, whom he described as slaves to the dominant Anglo-Saxon elite, to that of Afro-Americans that he said were still considered slaves in the United States. So this was the book. I remember the book. Yeah, big deal. What I can tell you about the word, okay. Should they apologize? You know what? It's all about how they said it. Once again, if we're going to talk about vernacular and tonality, they could say, oh, the white niggers, they would, yeah, you can almost hear passion and the intonation. But I can say, myself being one of them, old school, I'm not microstyle black guys from the old school. Yeah, they used to say that when I was a kid. And yeah, we used to beat them up. But that doesn't happen anymore because since groups like NWA, thanks to that, once again, the tentacle going up to the media saying, yes, let them say that. We said, no, why are they saying that anyway? It's part of life now. So this book existed. Instead of like a bunch of twits worrying about what these guys said, first of all, it was my argument with this book. Like I said, 1968. In 1968, you can go back to the Concordia riots for the actual Canadian students of the time, the West Indian students who were studying through a program called Mad Hour. I'll be doing something like that. This is like what we call Service Canada today. My mother was one of the few, rest her soul, to be privileged to study in the computer department back in those days, old school, right? And I was raised with that. So, with that being said, I was raised with that knowledge of those years when she went to that school and, of course, graduated. I went to the graduation, right? 77, Negro. Yeah, I was there watching my mom cross the stage, right? I was like, what, 8 years old? A decade right after 68. So the computer science with a couple of the boys, I guess the men, one of them was Douglas, they protested by this professor at the time who was not grading them fairly and so much sinister, right? It's always more. My mom used to tell me the stories. I'll get, maybe another post, I'll let you know what. So this guy, they took this guy forward and anything, but at the same time, the activism was there was a fire started on the ninth floor in the computer science floor in one of the classes, right? And it was trash and all this stuff out the window. Big time. They like real civil rights. You think? Like men were carrying, like, I am man, black men were carrying around signs with, I am a man, Montreal, Alabama. So all you Purlaine, les Québécois, Purlaine, hey, snake! They used to say, like, sing it. The snake police camarades de nègre. They used to sing it when I was a kid. Bikers and them. Right? So here we are, like, so that happened. So this is the twist. When that shit was going on, right? Martin Luther King and all of this was going on in the States simultaneously. I came into the world in '68, right? That fall, like months after Mr. King was knocked out. Who knows? A lot of us might have been resurrected. Who knows? Like Malcolm X. That's why we got all these Israelites out there. A lot of us are back, right? He said we were supposed to wipe you guys out. Right? He used to say that. He said you niggas weren't supposed to graduate in 1986. And they sabotaged the whole system. And then hip hop was done. But I digress. So after that movement, my family, my grandmother already been immigrated going up in the east end of Hochelaga. Till then, growing up as an Anglo, literally in what we call a Black Irish, Portuguese, Italian kid, that's my accent, because we didn't take on the American vernacular, as in what happened with the hip hop 90s. And you couldn't just talk patois like that, especially in Montreal. So, 68 happened because even the West Indians at the time had the privilege. Think about this, and this is where I see where they're coming from. This is where they come in with, well, geez, damn, if these niggas over here who are, I mean, like Anglo from the Queen, Pan African people who seeked out and wanted to get their asses out and then came to Canada and with migration, right? And they can go to university and learn computer science. Computer sciences in 1968. They're like, what? You niggas got more priority than us. So we can't get called niggas. We're the white niggers. So that happened. And this bull over here, this guy Pierre Vanier, he wrote it. Now, you know, folks, the Anglo folks, right, the British, right? The real white British people, you get it. Montreal was people say, hey, did you pick up French in Montreal? No, Montreal was like OG when it comes to the history of Canada and also, yeah, New France, but the bastardization of that, which created so many other offsprings, which is the Quebecois, the Métis, also part of native heritage, right? Like the Bélanger. I learned that shit in school. What? They used to say the Bélanger, that was one of the first Negroes back then. Really? Yeah. You know, I'm getting into Jacques Cartier, but well, that's another lesson. I'll let you know that in a minute. But what I'm trying to tell you in that American connection was that for a minute, black people was running things as much in Montreal as anyone better than the United States. Not to say it was perfect, and even especially me being born that child of the integration generation, those kids, those fucking kids that played together, that Dr. Martin King, I brought you into a burning building, kids. Thank you. Maybe we'll get it right maybe in 70 years, but I digress. So you can imagine how they felt. And already, yeah, the French were treated like second class for the longest time. That's why you have the Hudson Bay, the Bay, big store. I'm gonna hit you up with that in a minute. But that's what happened. So because of that, they got into this thing politically where they literally tried to be the black, well, they call themselves the French Panthers. Right? In a weird way, because they said they call themselves the Front Libération Québec. Comprends? Donc je parle québécois là, je vois. The FLQ. FLQ. So next thing you know, those Negroes, like everyone, like every other Negro, right? Because that was happening in in Latin America, right? With our friend Castro, right? And you had all that business going on, and African was still hot. The United States losing their mind, they popped off Bobby Kennedy right after that, right? And then they created that show, PBS, Sesame Street. Yeah, let's put on a big bird. Who's the first character? A bro, a black guy, tall, big black man in a suit, walking with a little blonde white girl, right? And teaching her how to count and being cool. Saying, yo, kid, you're safe with me. That's me doing my American, you know? They'd be like, yo, kid, you good. I'm just joking. It was more eloquent. You'd be like, one, two, three. Hello, world. Yes, let me walk you down and make sure that no crazy Klansmen and there be no bloody black person in this next generation will ever hurt you. And people lost their shit. They said, go, 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 go. Put in, I don't care, a green fucking sock, wash it bad, make it wool, call it Oscar. Let's get the cookie monster. Put anything out of shape, out of eyes. I'm just joking. But you know what I'm saying? And then of course you had Gordon, and then you had some other bros out there. Yeah, Bob, who represented like Stonehenge. Bob McGrath, yeah, he's like 100 almost. No, he's in his 90s, I think. I just heard that. Happy birthday, Bob. Yeah, Bob McGrath. I think it's the sing along. Yeah, that guy. Telling me about representing, right? Even back then, everybody knew Bob was like, hey, he was talking about LGBT. He's teaching you A, B, C, D, E. That's Bob, right? But you kids don't get it. You kids are all, yeah, Elmo. Elmo got a shot. You got that. You got that. Yeah. Anyway, so not to digress too much, but yeah, in '68 when they had the FLQ. So this is what these guys do, right? So this is like, yeah, so we had our moment. So long story short, that was worked out. One of the people involved in the ninth floor incident at Concordia University, um, however, it was orchestrated. And once again, psyops, eh? I always say question everything. If that's the case, then why? And what's the big picture behind it? So when that happened, one of them, Rosie Douglas, is well known. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have my West Indies political parties of the past and living stuff. Rosie Douglas became the prime minister of one of the Caribbean islands. Correct me, it might be St. Kitts. I'm not on it right at this second, but that's Rosie Douglas. He passed away, I believe, not too long ago. So imagine, right? In respect, that king, many would have, at the moment, was considered like a nigger like everybody else. He ended up, well, he had to, it's funny though, because they do that, they exiled us. Yes. And they said, okay, but he became a prime minister of a Caribbean country. So when that happened, right, that was a course of time. They always do that. But when the Quebecois, the FLQ started doing, right, my mom, she finished her degree. But what these kids did in 68, 69, 70, by 1970, all the way to what we call the October Crisis. So this is a few years after that book came out, right? In Nick Blood. So these guys said, yeah, we gotta do like these niggas, man. But what they did wrong, which is what we didn't do, I say we, generation mama, like, okay, the fire thing was a little rough, right? That's what we call the collateral damage. As far as I understood in reports, no one was hurt. Right? The fire department came, white people were kind of like, what the fuck's going on? Oh man, we got that here, right? Because it was a lot of English. Hey, qu'est-ce qui se passe? Wow, les nègres ici sont forts. Tabarnak, comment ça, des nègres, ils sont en train d'aller à l'université ici? Tu sais, sur de Maisonneuve. Hey, Thomasine, Caroline, tu sais, qu'est-ce qui se passe avec what, you know, they go off like that. So when that minute happened, what was going on was when they said 1970, they decided to do some wild shit. They started blowing, they did some, sabotage, put bombs and shit, blowing up postbox, downtown Montreal, banks and shit. Right? You can look up the history. I'm going to tell every detail, but they did that. They busted up, right? And then the prime minister at the time, it was Pierre Trudeau. That's Justin's dad, current prime minister's dad. Albeit he was cool. He was kind of also in that I want to see, black kids, white kids, all everybody together, play together, but don't stick your nose in people's bedrooms. He said that. Whenever goes in people's bedroom, stay out of that shit, right? And apart from that, living like he wasn't all that perfect either for many people, right? So when that happened, with this bomb thing, Anglophones like my grandmother, my family, yeah, even the cops was looking up to do that. And even when we tried to do that, well, people was like, okay, cool, cool. But these guys blowing shit up everywhere. So I can say it now, because many of you are probably not around. was going around. I remember propaganda behind that. They had all these programs. One popular French program called Bye Bye. Martin Frank Sinatra piece, like they're dressed up like soldiers. It's in black and white, and they're talking. One talking in French, one talking in English, sharing a piece of bread, some fucked up nonsense. I can't even remember, sorry, but so, and they're like, how's it going? And it's Christmas, right? And it's snowing, right? They got that little snow in the background. Of course, Montreal is always snowing. It's fucking October. Yeah, New Year's is snow. So yeah, they make it peace. It was just, in hindsight, when I look at it, if you look at it today, I think it's pretty hilarious in the sense that, really, this is fucking Montreal. This shit, like, what? Okay, you guys got the military, so now you guys are doing, like, a sing song, right? Man, let's make together. Yeah, brother, I'd like to do that. Can't be as best. But that happened, so oof, the Canadian government captured those guys. I can't remember their name. I think Lord T was one of them. Anyway, you know what they did? You know what they did, kids? They sent their asses to Cuba. Exile to Cuba. Now, how did that happen? I wonder. I was just I was like, what? Wait a minute. You mean after all this big of course, the military was gone, the helicopters were gone, they busted anybody, pretty much anybody affiliated with that FLQ thing, which was like a lot of kids, a lot of young people. It was like, that was the British sweep, as I would call it, right? Because it was the Canadian army. Yeah, it was like an act of war. So they went after them like they were going after like the Nazis and shit. They bust out one. You kids don't know, and a lot of them a lot of them got out. A lot of them shut their mouth after that, and then those guys, those French niggas, meaning those French niggas were out of the city just like Rosie Nichols. Only difference is they didn't get to bring no shit. They came. I think some of them are still. They came back. I think they got some parties and shit. You kids don't know. I think one of them fucking was doing the news even, right? I think that was like, I look him up. So they named Blanc. So when that happened, right? Fast forward 1970, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? That guy's gone. That FOT stuff got disbanded, per se, of a better word, and they got into politics, which is, I guess, what everybody does, right? Right? So yeah, just like the United States, same thing. People were kind of chilling. People were getting dumb on heroin, drugs, crime. Canada had a lot of bikers, messed out. Mom Boucher, who just died, who was the captain of the Hells Angels. That was part of the biker war back then, during up until the mid 20th century. That was my wedding, Hochelaga. Don't get me started on that because that actually was when we started to see the black gangs. No. And we were the first generation. They were trying to hit us up because we went to school with their kids, right? Whether it was the capital, the mob. Look up the stories of Montreal's history on that in the 70s, right? They used to put bikers, when they were watching out bikers, they used to put the bikers in cement boots. That's where that shit came from. That was crazy. You kids don't know. But after 1975, and even in between that culture, that biker culture, that was hot. I mean, everybody's getting hot, I'm sure. Yeah. I was a kid then, my family's like, hey, keep away from those people. It doesn't matter if they have don't play with that baby, don't play with that dog. No, keep away from it. She's drinking grape juice out of a bottle. She's not drinking milk, that was a baby. Why is that baby drinking grape juice? I was like, wow. She's like, no, you stay here. Right? Because they had a lot of them, right? And so when that happened, this guy running Avec, I met him, sweetheart of a guy. Met him at Breakdance 83. It was a long story short. Yeah, told the boss part. You kids don't, you don't. But he was about the same generation as True. He came out, he's like, look, you niggas gotta get that shit like even more tighter than that. He knew how to speak. He smoked a cigarette all the fucking time. He was like real gangster, real OG for him. You know, once he was like that. He was like, okay, and he could speak fucking English too, right? People don't know that. They don't like when the vet, well, he spoke English to me. You know, he was I'm talking like kind of like like no. Yeah, it's sort of like Notorious Big. For real. Just a bit. Again, I'm just taking it there, but yeah, you got that, like this, yeah. So he, with the Party Québécois, the PQ, was introducing was Bill 101, which became like, okay, me, a Canadian Montreal born baby of 68, coming from a West Indian, English, British speaking family. And whether that be anywhere else, even like if you were from Italy or whatnot, you were not obliged to go to a French school. When Bill 101 happened, they said, you gotta go to a French school. If you're gonna be born here from another, you're coming from another country, from another mother, whatever, you're coming in this territory, your ass is mine and you're bonjour. What? No. Comment ça parler français maintenant? But no. And that happened. While I would say, in hindsight today, as I look back, I would say it wasn't a bad thing. Today, it's the same trope argument they're still using 50 years. See where I'm going about this? So anyway, from that, however that be, even if I went to an English Catholic school with the nuns, we still took French as a course. But it wasn't a practice, right? Because your friends, your community are English unless you went to a French school. And most of the English Catholic school system back then, the CECM, or this was the acronym, the Catholic School Commission of Montreal, back in those days, that's it. If you were rolling and the majority of your class was Italian kids, yeah, you're going to be rolling with them. And you had French kids in Anglophone school because actually that was something too. Believe it or not, if you wanted, that's why they were saying we're French niggas, man. We can't even go to our own French schools and get a job. We got to go to an English school. So that's reality. So by 1976, when they were calling out an election to get this party going, get this party, the Parti Québécois started right, and the Union Nationale was the old party, United Nigger Party, I would call it that, right? The Union Nationale, it's always about Nationale, and here's a side note. In 1968, this guy, Charles de Gaulle, he's the one that set that shit off. He lit that shit off with his Vive le Québec libre. Because France was going through some weird shit. He looked like Inspector Clouseau. Who's he from the Pink Panther? Look it up. But he had the hat and everything, old guy. And yeah, and that's when basically what they call quiet revolution, la révolution tranquille, when that shit happened, they popped off, right? Don't forget it's the 60s here, right? We needed a bunch of young, dumb, full of, at the time, kids from that generation are like, yeah, we gotta do that. We're not black, but we'll do it for the French. And next thing you know, the trope of the word nigger came in, right? By 1968. Je pense bien, là, on est des nègres. Des nègres blancs, right? So that's what happened. And so since all of that, and then 76 happened, so then Parti Québécois got voted in. And that, René Levesque, he was my OG, he was my real one, but I'm serious. I mean, that seems true too, but yeah, he was like, I was like, really, yeah? Meanwhile, the election caused a lot of scared fucking Anglophones, right? They bailed, they went to Toronto. 76, that's when, so now from 1968 to 76. So, I'm going to be honest here, no offense, but this is like, truth serum. Like I said, I'll give you the nuggets. I can tell you straight up, the reaction of that too was very, how we can say, it was very mob-like, but it had a sort of a, like in the beginning when you had that, even with how the Jews were feeling when the Nazis were coming into Poland, right? And they started to pull shit on people. It had that energy, It had that sort of animosity. And while it wasn't violent, it wasn't cool. So when we were kids, other expressions came up. So when they call themselves anything blanc, we used to have deplorable terms, but only according to the social construct because a lot of them were poor, right? A lot of them didn't have the top job. So when they had to create their own, because face it, for them, there was a lot of French people there, included everywhere throughout Canada. So it's not a sin, just like American Spanish, right? It's okay. But Quebec is exceptional, as I could say, especially today, because it is the French province. And I'm good with that, you know? Yeah, I've been good with it since I had to be like French English, you know? But if you were English, we could have helped by being more humble. But once again, colonialism is not humble. So, moving on, um, when these parties were created, a lot of people bailed into Toronto. A lot of people stuck it out. And literally, with that, there came that animosity and that prejudice and slight civil unrest, because then you had the biker culture, which majority for the good part of it was the pivot club. For the minute, because you had the Irish who had their own Shire, and they had so there wasn't like you seeing any black people running anything. And even then, you had black people there, but that too, that was still on top. That was under the topic, right? Like, yeah, you can, So that was that culture. So the takeaway from that in the image in those early, like 77, what was it all that long, but for the good part, the biker culture, long hair and all that shit, those kids, they were going off. They were going off. They were like running things, opening bars, creating business, right? And then, of course, Montreal's a powerhouse on its own. Eventually, I believe the Anglophone shareholders saw the impact, and then they started to open up some ideas. Say, all right, you guys can have, yeah, we know Radio Canada is the first one. Shut up. It's still, right? It's still CBC, right? They letting you know that. You say you can call it whatever yeah, you want to call your stores French names, it's cool. Because everything was literally, even if you were French, it was fucking Anglo-Saxon. It was ridiculous. What we started doing was, and some and it's terrible. We were calling them French frogs. Hey, the frog, remember? The frog seems relevant now because we hear about this Pepe thing. But we were already calling them. Isn't that weird? The white niggas of Canada, white niggas of America, right? Well, we were calling them French frogs. We used to say they were eating Pepsi or drinking Pepsi Cola all day and eating May West chocolate cakes, right? We made, there were, and of course, a lot of them were fighting back because they already had that edge with the biker thing. So yeah, you had some biker shit going on from their end. They had no reason to hate Anglophons. Right? They were like, as a then we had a, we heard a lot of that. Then that's what they got off like us singing to that, right? They weren't calling themselves gay after that. You didn't, you see, you check? They were not calling themselves gay. They were not. They cut that shit right up. They said, okay, we good now. We got our own articulate plot. We're gonna run things. Don't be saying no nigga except until the real niggas. You call them nigga. Allez. All over the place. Because under the leg. That was the reality. It got off, right? And the 70s happened, and then, long story short now, it popped. And then we had assimilated. That was the new word. We didn't call it multicultural, we said assimilation. Assimilate. Assimilate, right? And of course that happened because, yeah, the young Gen Xers at that time now, we didn't give a shit, really. Because we were like French, English, right? We were all black, white, yeah. Boys, girls, yeah. That happened. Right? And of course, the great beauties of Quebec is and Montreal is there are lovers out there. So it was at least back then. I don't know. And it's very, so it became very secular with the nuns and all that. Well, they're still there, but I mean the Catholic, the whole, yeah, they cut that shit. Like I grew up in a school like back in the 70s. We used to say the Our Father, right? And that was going on for such a while. And then we were the first ones to rule it out even before the United States. I understand the United States was a thing, but when I was a kid, you had to say the Our Father in grade school. Imagine that, eh? From grade one to grade six, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. You're like 12 years old. I can laugh at it now because it's like, you know what the deal is with the Christianity thing, all of that. But anyway, so with that, the juxtaposition of going secular, well, yeah, there was a lot of sex, a lot of weird, yeah, kids were getting kidnapped, all kinds of pedo shit too, yeah, that was going on, a lot of weird stuff, because there was like, who were the overseers? Well, definitely not the British. So, we'll take your money, you want to get, what? We'll give you a piece of land, yeah, well, you make a strip joint, yeah, okay, sure. Like, that's what it was. Oh, no, fucking right here. I have a whole street. Same city. It's old. It's your street. Infringe it upon you. Yeah, that happened. So, yeah, guess who became the nigga then? And then we had more black looking people. We had another nigga out there. Cool. Yeah, so shout out. He's cool. Mr. Ferrier, one of my early, like I would say, person I still look up to as a writer. Right? He pulled out this shit now. He made this book called Believe It or Not, and you guys can't censor it because that book is still existing, just like Midnight the White Niggas of America. You can censor it all you want, the fucking book is there. So this Negro, right, and then the Haitians, of course the French got smart. They said, bring in all the French niggers, all French speaking niggers anywhere. It doesn't fucking matter. Bring in Chile, fucking, they speak French, yeah, bring those niggers in too. Or I'm saying this in English because I can say it in French too, but I believe in majority for time's sake. But I can say, ouais, tous les nègres, non, mais pas de, non. C'est les gens qui parlent français. Les gens qui parlent français québécois, tu sais, on peut s'assimiler avec, tu sais. Well, I think it jumped me to a little funny when I say it in English, right? Because, especially when I say that nigger thing in there. Like, nah. Wait, no. Bring that nigger, maintenant, c'est un nigger Chili, le moins brun possible, Guadeloupe, ouais, Maroc, parfait, ah ouais, deal. Right? And of course, as beautiful as everybody was, yeah, some of them too. Yeah, they had their niggas, right? And they were like, hey, we can do some business. We had people in Congo. There those hardcore French niggas too. They run there. So that is a good thing, I can say. But of course, it disenfranchised us Anglo-Indians, right? That's another, going into the topic. By then, especially by the time I graduated high school, oh yeah, we were officially niggas. Officially. If you were a young black man, officially. You didn't hear nothing about no nigga. What? The 80s happened, they were already like dynasty, right? They were like, nah, they made boots, right? They pulled the straps. And anybody who was just down with going their vibe, and I survived, yeah. I'm bilingual, right? So yeah, but the prices of that nationalism is still, once again, powers choking, chokehold of powers when you run the communications, right? Like you don't have no niggas out there, period, right? I mean, we used to have one niggas out back in the day on TV. French niggas, I'm an actor, I did 130 episodes, I'm one of the first niggas out there to do that on television that was translated in French, right? But after, say, even the 90s, forget about it. You saw maybe one, two. You see more now, you would say, right? I'm talking French and English, but we have a generation of brilliant people who are like working, but they can tell you, man, be stingy, be tight. It always has to be about them. Right? They'll make a play like that woman, or no, that other girl. What's her name? Is that La Point? What is his name? Is it no? Veneer? Michelle? Yeah. The girl with the play, he was making a comment about the play Slav that came out a couple of years ago, right? As we see here, we talk about Slav. So this woman put out this thing and said, race Slav, and it was basically a theater piece with all races singing slave songs. And of course, the history of the Slavs coming from Slavic. Yeah, get it? Long story short. So people took that and said, oh, there's an issue with that. Why? Because she's putting in something about at least the African American version, Afro Canadian maybe, that she could have included Nova Scotian, as well as like with the underground that could have been, or that was put in, but once again, the context, right? Context. It's all about that. So here we are today, the 2022. We're back to this, right? So this is a book, yeah, the veterans whom he described as slaves to the dominant Anglo-Saxon elite. So they went off on that. And today, they won't say it, but the fact now that me being that kid, the original OG nigga from the time, I mean, that Québécois till then, I could even say, hey, you guys said this, you said nigga 4 times. Nay! Right? Nay! You know what? We have to ask, all right, you want to talk about that big book? Then nigger it up, just like how I just educated you on the history of why they were calling themselves French niggas. Because this is where, once again, this is all this whole delicate position of freedom of speech versus a generation of numbnuts, like I like to call them in this great article, the neutered world order, right? Because then already, yeah, naturally young people, oh, you can't say this, yeah, because in a way, maybe also about how he's teaching it, right? Because if he's teaching it to a class of, or, even if they're talking in the interview here, if he's introducing it like nigger, 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 don't say choir, nigger, what is a nigger? Oh, see? Then we have to get, well, they could say, they're not going to say, well, it's a French guy. They're not going to define it as our Québécois. So there we go. Les nègres, like niggers. Yeah, they exist. So then call it what it is. I'm sure maybe if you could have said, we call it, what it is, the white niggers of Canada, then what the book is about is saying how they try to steal, in a weird way, or plagiarize the situation of the times to work in their advantage, and failed miserably, while the real struggle of the time, which was of the kids of the 40 under the first computer, that worked. So this is the angle maybe we take. I could freely say white niggers of America, les nègres blancs, because I was a nigga to them forever. When I was a kid, this yeah. If they're saying it, once again, looking at you, a black person, and saying, this is not about the neg, white niggers of America, neg blanc d'America, neg blanc. Hear what I'm saying? If he was like, oh, they blanc d'America, that's it, okay, I think we could pass with that. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe the way it's being taught is like, they need to blah, they make to blah, right? So the fact is now, does this type of book remain even relevant when you're teaching? What are you teaching in history? Right? This is a professor. I don't know who the professor of the class is, but I'm going to at least think it's probably some type of art, right? And freedom of expression. But look, it's turning into like what? Well, okay, so this guy, we got one girl who's okay, making a contesting this whole thing here. So let's see. Most Canadian support, yeah. Once again, it's all in the context. So on Thursday, the CRTC published a ruling which contains the book's full name. Yeah, really blah. demanding that Radio Canada publish a public apology to a complaint social worker and artist Ricardo Lamour, who took offense to the use. A majority, yeah, so he took offense. A majority of CRTC people were dissatisfied with the way blah, 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 blah. Sharing a warning in the beginning of, yeah, okay, mitigate, including not repeating or sharing a warning at the beginning of the conversation. That I can understand. Maybe once again, the intention, right? Intention, aspiration, right? So what do you want to put out there? What do you want to project? Exactly. Mitigate the impact. And yeah, the broadcast will, yeah, once again, going back to my discussions about relying on the big octopus sentence, right? So, this gentleman, Lamour, a black Montrealer, a black, does it matter? That too, like I said, that politics is real. I remember some fucking OG Negroes coming from other countries, right? What? They are so French, and they know like hardcore. That's what I was saying at one point. When people say like blacks can be racist against white. No, man, blacks can be racist against black people. Black looking niggas can be racist against them. That's what it is. It's straight up. They don't like this French nigga because they're bad, right? So got that. No, they no, no, they hate you. They don't hate those guys. They love them. Those people like that, they love. They don't want to. I can tell you, even I know people, family, all kinds of shit. Some interracial relationship what happened in the 80s. How many parents went buck wild with that? They never accepted the grandkids, and maybe eventually they accepted the grandkids. Maybe after, maybe even I don't know, traumatizing or abusing the grandkids. Who knows? But it could be all kinds of scenarios. But one thing sure, that don't get it twisted. That gets real, and maybe sometimes there's such a situation where a white mother who had the child with the black father, what the father says. Well, the father says, well, you gotta watch out for some niggers. The mother, because she learned about niggers, is like, no, my nice light skinned daughter who's looking, no, don't even bring that here in French, right? And then you'll have black people, black couple, black family, black daughter. No, don't bring that shit here. Bring me something. No, don't bring. Yeah, no Asian here. No black. Bring me a nice, rich, you know, French white guy. Yeah, that's real. So the more, and this is of course not associating this gentleman like that. I'm just saying we have to look at all aspects of even what this complaint was. Because for me, with the dropping of nuggets I just gave you, right? I can tell you in my vernacular, and I bet you. And this is why they try to keep niggas like us, the woke OG Gen Xers, quiet because they're like, fuck, you guys talk so off the hook. You guys are sick with how you put out those lyrics, right? And how you penetrate the minds of people. We can't let you speak like that because then they'll think, for real, we were the white niggas of Canada. We don't want that. We want them to think they're the white niggas of Canada, using the white niggas of Canada playbook. Ah, so. The more, the Black Montrealer said Monday that he appreciates the CRTC's ruling, but that he has since received violent blowback to its personality or to a person. During the interview, which he received an email calling him a woke complainer that people are getting very sick of. But the dissent came from within the CRTC, with two commissioners, Caroline J. Simard and Joanne T. Levy, publishing their own dissenting opinions, disagreeing with the majority. Simard namely criticized her colleagues for failing to note the cultural differences between the single neg word in French and its various versions, meaning and histories in English. At the end of the day, you know what? Yeah, but nah, you're still a nigga. You get it? The majority decision is based on the premise the use of the word neg the mot neg, as used in this book title has evolved in the French-speaking world in such a way that it deserves the same treatment that the nigga word receives in the rest of the country. In the English language, the majority decision has taken a step kind of thing. So, now this is the thing, and I was just discussing that the other day. When the 90s happened and we got corrupted by everything, by the powers that be, when the United States, with D. Schneider and Frank Zappa, they got the mothers tripped up and they said yes, they go in the Senate, they made it. They said that bill, the bill to restrict wave for freedom of speech. So this is where that went. It went south in the sense that yeah, it's freedom of speech, but is that void of decorum? Is it to be callous? Is it necessary that it has to be violent for expression's sake or for physical threat's sake? It's all of these things. So when the rap groups like NWA came up, niggas with attitude. Imagine like growing up your favorite group from, we used to be the freaking Commodores, Earth, Wind, and Fire, two niggas with attitude. Where the fuck did the attitude come from? Well, it came from a nigga. Oh, okay. Why does this nigga have an attitude? Because he's a nigga. So, yeah. Over the weekend on Monday, a growing number of Quebec media and political voices expressed their opposition to the ruling to say nigga. You see how stupid it's getting? Okay, so just fucking say nig. But you know what? Call them niggers. Call them all. Who's the station? Call the Radio Canada. Call them all. Say, you know what, you are a white nigger. Vous êtes des nègres blancs. Hey, mon nègre blanc. Next time you go to a bar, or as they call it, a taverne, right? And you see some old guy, like, you see an old guy sitting there, hey, what's up? I'm nègre blanc. Qu'est-ce qui se passe, mon nègre blanc? Si, mon nègre. What? You look at him like, what? Excuse me? What? You got the wrong guy. Say, what? Do that. I dare you. And let them feel what they want to feel. That's why I said, if you want to go there, back in the old day, we would go like that. We go around. But that's how much the word itself has been passed around like a train orgy, right? Everybody got a piece of nigga right now, except us, because we own it. So yeah, they're a growing number. Fuck you. I'm sorry to say that. We're really fucking going. How about we say all the other words you don't like? Like we should be allowed to say French fry because we used to say that. We used to use that word. Fucking big. Why don't you call it the French fries of Canada or the French fries of America? Right? Because that was what the word, that was what the nigger, the negra, was so. I guess by the point of even the 70s and by 76, it was discarded. It went back to the rightful owners, which was the original niggers, right? So if you guys wanna fight to fucking say like nigga, like which the origin means, well, okay, the origin going back from Nigeria, right, nigga, which is actual correct way to say it. But once again, the intonation and the other adjective to it is nigger like say, beat your motherfucking ass, rape your mom, kill you, buck, right? Slave ships, slaves, cotton picking, right? Now gangster, baby mom, Pookie and Ray Ray, right? So even if you want to have the right to say it, there's so many even fucking connotation and adjectives to the word now. So you know what? Maybe the Fédération professionnelle des journalistes du Québec, les nègres, or peut-être les nègres de Fédération professionnelle des journalistes du Québec, nègres. The province's largest journalists association also published a statement calling the decision a dangerous precedent. The group over 50 current, les Nègres Radio-Canada, les Radio Nègres Canada, headliners published their own letter demanding Radio Canada disavow the concerning ruling and contested vigorously as the nègre. Check the Quebec Nègre Culture Minister Nathalie Roy voiced her support for the letter and opposition to the ruling by Nègre Crignal François Lenègre Legault. Licks, licks, licks. So it's the neg is right? Because everybody wants to say that neg so much, right? So yeah, okay. We're gonna let's see if maybe this can get some activism. And then radio host, letters instigator Alain Gravel said he was very aware of the heavy significance carried by the nigger word, the neg word, the N word. Can you see? I hope my viewers know I'm black. So for me, at my age, fucking even having this as a discourse, knowing what I just schooled you on, I just schooled you on, bro, just told you the fucking the white niggers America came from. It wasn't even about us. And here they are, they're like, we want to have the right to say it, but we want to mean it like it's about us. Oh. I'm afraid the CRTC will become the censorship police, he added, and he and many other colleagues, yeah. And along with Wendy Mesney there, yeah. But once again, if you want to go there, one thing I remember about Mesney, Mesney, CBC anchor, Wendy Mesney, I understand she's from Burgundy. She's lived in Burgundy back in the day. Burgundy was one of the most Negro areas back in the day when I was breaking. Hey, who are you from? Burgundy. Yeah, me LaSalle, me Hochelaga, yo. You're French. You're French, you love. No, no, bro. I'm like you. One love. You listening? So when I heard that nonsense, oh, they fired her, I'm like, well, why? If he's a nigger, well, if you lived in an area with a lot of bros back in the day that we weren't even calling niggas back then, I don't know. You really think it's like what? You didn't like a bro? Something happened? You date somebody and like it didn't work out? And now they're all like, what? So I'm just saying, right? It's kind of weird, but hey, she left Burgundy, right? And once again, you can have black-looking people, same thing. They can come from the most ghettoest area, and next thing you know, they are signed, sealed, delivered, white supreme blacks, right? So let's see here. So yeah, that was the thing with this. Leslie was removed from her post years ago for quoting the book title at work. So yeah, it's like I mean, for all we know, like what started this whole thing about the course? Once again, it's about fucking learning and learning about the past, right? If that was the case, but we gotta be mindful. We wouldn't want to start taking or using all the slurs of what what Jews went through during the Second World War, during the Holocaust. You wouldn't want to, like even though they as a nation don't went around calling themselves like the N word per se, right? There were N style words for them. And those words still exist. So if we were going to go out there and use, let's say, the K word, which is a word, you could look it up, right? That's a word that was in Michael Jackson's song. They don't care about us, right? He said, "Kick me, K me," and that right after that, they're like, "What? No, 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 no! They can't do that. What? They blew it up. They had to change it." Now imagine if this was actually something that we could discuss. Oh, we want to have a right to say the K word. Kick me, K me. The K, it'd be like the K niggas of America. Wouldn't that be like a blowout? That's like the complete opposite of a Hebrew Israelite. Get it? Or a black Israelite. You know? The K niggas of America. Even if it was Italian, even if it was a sand, as the expression goes for some, a sand Negro. right? Once again, if you can get away and say, yeah, the San Negroes of America or Canada, it's always about, it's not like the Negroes of Europe, or, but it's about America, right? Like that. And there you go, right? You wouldn't like it. So it's one of those moot talking points to a certain degree, created out of what it is to be psyop or, regular fodder. But this news was just on the burner just before everything got blacked out, right? And let's see, there's this during the interview. Okay, so this is where this goes. During the interview, Moore referred to opponents of the ruling as the elites, wealthy and hack jobs, who hold all the power and are fighting to maintain the status quo at the detriment of racialized Quebecers. If a black person is saying that the usage of a term that was historically used to dehumanize his family, his ancestors, his people, the black person is standing up to them and saying, I have an issue with this, they're not even listening and contextualizing. They're just like, you're attacking our freedom of expression, which I would agree 1000%. And of course, once again, that's why because it's a new or a rehashed talking point, if you don't have real Negroes like myself who can teach you, or maybe honest professors, no matter where they come from, who know and are versed well enough to tell the real truth of the history, right? I can give you the context. I know my beautiful black mother and all of her class that graduated proudly, class of 1977, with honors and a bachelor, will not, by any means, as I talk in my Vermont American Anglophone, no way will be considered as any type of nigger, quote unquote. So that is the truth. So if they want to go off and get off and say, nigga, call them the same thing because that's what it's really all about. They, they, well, as the book said at that time, were and possibly still are the white niggers of America, right? Ruling as the elites wealthy and have jobs. Because whatever they're doing nigger behavior either way. That's for sure. So in the statement, Radio Canada, Julie Hassan said the ruling and the dissenting opinions illustrate the complexity of the issue well. Why? It's not complex. Just call yourself a nigger. Z, you said they make notes, no? They don't own up to it because that's what the book is about. It's not about us, it's about them. They were the white niggers of Canada. So they got to be able to project it on themselves. And then, like I said, it's all about projection. There's like, well, we'll teach you. If I bet you, if hey, you know what? Give me a call. Just like my fans out there. I have a lot of ex-neo fucked up people and Nazi and KKK people, and like, because I grew up with some of them and all the shit. Long story short, MK Montreal Ultra Baby. I'm just letting you know. A lot of them, even them, they're like, this shit gotta stop, man. One God, one love, right? It's not all about the neutered world order. So I hope you get a nice takeaway from this because this was one of the events that happened. And, I'm sure, even though, I said it 4 times, they have this ruling published for this, and the fact that at the end of the day, a nigger can't even get a job in the industry that's, actually procuring all of this controversy. I mean, I'd like to know what, if, and or where the black Montrealer producers and journalists are, right? Notice all these names I just mentioned, right? Notice all these organizations. How many fucking black people you have there? I was one of those students, you know what? You guys didn't open up. So, once again, I have to agree. You are the white niggas of America still. And I could actually end this blog on saying it's just always a matter of time before, and I'm not saying this as a negative or a threatening, I'm just saying it's just a matter of time as the yin and yang, right? What goes around comes around. So now here we are, 50 years later, coming around to a moot talking point, right, politically, and once again taking advantage of the people who are the status quo, who pay the bills, and basically make these people richer and richer every day. I'll talk to you later. Let's take a break. Peace.